think this is a conversation that we have talked about having for months. So, I mean, quarantine has kind of made things happen. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I am going to preface this conversation by saying we all have different opinions when it comes to sex, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to our bodies, all of those things. So I want you guys to bear in mind that Andrea is sharing her opinion. She is a sex educator. So just keep that in mind. And so I'm going to do like a mushy intro to Andrea, which she's going to love me for. She can explain what she does and a little bit more about who she is. And we do have a little bit of an agenda we're going to go with. But so Andrea is one of those women who I have a special connection with. She is one of the first people to raise her hand and be like, I can help. And to see the days that I am not doing well emotionally, the days that have been like stressful and overwhelming. And she's always one of the first people to ask me how I am and offer to help. So Andrea has spent many evenings after classes talking through things with me and idea generating and Sarah, why don't you do this? And Sarah, let me help you do this. And so I am super grateful for this amazing woman. She is a heart of gold. She is very well spoken and she exudes love. So I'm so excited to have you. I'm going to let you explain a little bit about who you are. And then we're going to get a little bit into your own journey when it comes to loving your body. So floor is yours.
Thank you, Sarah. Why don't you start by making me cry and getting my feelings, and then it's a perfect, place from which to speak from, as a professional. So a little bit about me, that's I guess relevant to this conversation more so, is sex and relationships has always been something I was interested in way before it was even relevant to my life. I remember being like a preteen and just relationships and drama and things, even Dawson's Creek, getting into just like the ways that people connect. And I think that's what brought me to sex and sexuality is it's just one of the really primary ways that people connect. But ultimately I'm interested in relationships and and being of service. And you mentioned wanting to help, and I think that's where it comes from, kind of wanting to help. And so I hope that this conversation, I think about what you've taught us around journaling and setting intentions, and this idea that I just wanted this to hopefully be useful to folks, to somebody who's watching. I come to it from a kind of practical background of like, I like to talk about these things. People come to me, we chat. I've had a lot of conversations in my life around sex and relationships, but I also do have an academic background. So I did a graduate degree in curriculum studies with a focus on sexual and reproductive health education. And then I spent 6 years of my career working at a women's health organization in South Africa that essentially, and shout out if anybody's watching in South Africa and from Murray Stokes, which is essentially sort of the Planned Parenthood of SA. And so, I got really grounded in this work and even more committed to it. And now I have a little side project. My day job is as a communications manager at a nonprofit. But my little side project is a website called AndreaTalksAboutSex.com, where I put myself out there as someone who can help with things like we're going to talk about. So let's talk about them.
Yes. So we are going to link all of Andrea's details in the YouTube video, and I don't think we can tag it here. But anyways, we'll figure that out. If you want to know who she is, follow her on Instagram because I've tagged her a bunch of times, or send me a message and I will send you her Instagram. But what I want to talk about is, can you share a little bit about how you came to learn to love your body? I know that you've had a journey long before we met. So I'd like to hear a little bit about that because I think one really great way for women to get to know each other is storytelling. And every single woman has a story. And that's the purpose of these lives, is because I want to be sharing your guys' stories. Because different people will relate to different things. We might learn something from somebody that like somebody else has gone through and overcome, or it's also realizing that we are all in this together and we all struggle with body issues and loving ourselves, and we're all in different stages of the journey. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey to self-love and kind of where you're at, kind of thing.
Okay, awesome. And forgive my barking dog, everybody. She's very excited about this conversation too. She's just dropping in the other room. Well, so a couple of things is one, first of all, I laughed. I laughed when the thing came up because I went to share it because I thought, oh, I'm going to share this with a community of people who don't know Sarah and don't know that journey to self-love is her conversation. And so it just looks like, when it's coming from me, like journey to self-love, like it's a whole other thing.
So true. I didn't think about that.
Right, which made me laugh. But the idea for me in that it's a journey, and that old kind of wise but cliche term that like the journey is the destination. So this idea that there is kind of body love as this ultimate goal, as opposed to it's like a little something you try to do every day. And so there are days you love your body, there are days you like your body, there are days you don't like it, and then there's days you just kind of feel neutral. And so I have always felt, I think, happiest when I can get to a point of kind of body neutrality where I'm not thinking too much about my body. For example, today in getting ready for this live, one of the things I was kind of proud of is it took me until like an hour ago to go, oh, I should like have a shower and put on some makeup and, you know, get ready to do this, because I was focused more on what I want to say and what's the conversation that I want to have. And so when I can forget about it, when it's not at the front of my mind, I find that's when I'm happiest. And so I guess for me, it's been being able to occupy myself and my mind and put myself in a community of people who, you know, activate and inspire me to think about things beyond my body. As soon as I enter into a room and there's a, you know, a diet conversation that feels judgy, or as soon as people start, you know, self-criticizing, and in a way I usually try without judgment or anything else, but just to say like, that's not healthy for me, and I'm gonna remove myself from that conversation, and I'm gonna go over here and have a conversation about something that I think is gonna be fruitful.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all kind of need to practice, especially right now. Like a lot of us are probably on social media a little bit more than normal. And now is the time to be doing things like curating your feed. Who do you want to be allowing into you, between all the memes of what you're going to look like post-quarantine or dieting during quarantine or whatever it is, like those things do affect us. And so making sure that when we're allowed to be around each other again, that you're surrounding yourself with people that help nourish the things that are important to you. But that also means relationships that are online. It also means social media. It means all of those things. So where would you say you were in your journey to appreciating and valuing who you are when you came to Fitness by Sarah Taylor? Because you've been with us just over a year, I would say. So it's been some time.
Yeah, April was like my 1 year anniversary in the Fitness by Sarah Taylor community. So I would say one of the things that I had started to do at that point, it's interesting you mentioned Instagram, because I think social media gets a lot of flack and isn't necessarily perceived, like most things in life, we go for the negatives instead of the positives. For me, one of the incredible things about Instagram in particular was learning to curate my content. And so I think I kind of tipped over from body kind of neutrality to like more body love and body confidence thanks to Instagram, because I started to, traditional media feeds you only the images that, you know, not to get all anti-corporate, but like, you know, all those images that they want to feed you. Whereas Instagram, you choose what you're going to see yourself. And I followed a lot of people with bodies like mine, and who had bodies like mine and had something positive to say. And so that really started to make me feel better and started to really reprogram my brain. Even seeing, like, I like clothes and I like nice things. And so seeing clothes on bodies that looked like mine, where I could actually kind of envision what might like that look like. And so I can give it back to you in terms of a little mush and gush, which is like seeing people like yourself who not only are, you know, proud of your body and out there being a representative, but who espouse positivity and love and just, you know, really hold space for folks. Like it means a lot that you're not out there trying to manipulate people in bigger bodies. You're not out there trying to feed on our insecurities of you should look like this, or, you know, focused on weight loss or anything else. Like you have created a community that's focused on loving yourself. I mean, for me, my Fitness by Sarah Taylor journey has been almost exclusively about fitness and about like the wins and gains of being stronger and being able to lift this weight, you know, this week and this bigger weight, you know, 2 weeks later. You see, I get excited in class, you know. And again, that kind of speaks to that body neutrality piece of like, when I'm there, I'm not thinking about the size of my body or how it looks or how it moves or whatever. I'm thinking more about like what it can do. And that's been very crystallizing because I've always been someone who wanted to be active and was actually relatively fit, but I didn't want to do it in a space. I was never a group fitness person. I don't know if my friend Katie is watching, but we took a fitness class once, and Katie is this big. Like she's the paragon of a slim lady. And we did a fitness class, and we were on a stepper, and I tripped, and I fell, of course, because I'm uncoordinated, not because I'm a big girl. And she got down to kind of help me. Are you okay? And she said, can you just stay down there for a minute? Because I need to breathe. Like, I can't keep up with this class. and so it just reminded me of, like, even in that moment that, like, people looked at that scene and they didn't see two friends equals who were having the same struggle. They saw, like, oh, this poor girl who's fallen down on her stepper. And that's okay. Like, she and I had that moment and we know what it was.
Yeah.
But Fitness by Sail Trail was the first time I started to work out with people who looked like me, and not to gas you up too hard, but it, like, really changed my life.
And I am going to try not to cry, but it makes me so happy that that's the experience, because it's why it was created. Like, it's that's all I'm gonna say. This isn't about me tonight at all. So, let's get into sex.
Anytime.
So, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with talking about, because we talked about having the conversation about sex during quarantine, whether you're single or you're with somebody. So do we want to attack the single part first?
Sure. Sounds good.
Well, so this is all you singles, listen up. So I think the conversation for singles is, if you're not getting any right now, let's just put it that way. And managing that. Actually, whoa, let me reel this in. I think we need to have the conversation first about when it comes to body love and sex. I think we missed that gap. I think that is a little bit of a gap that we need to address first. So when it comes to, I know me personally, in the past, it's been, I'm self-conscious about my body being naked in front of my partner, and addressing how do you overcome those things, and what are some things that you can do, or maybe ask your partner to help you with, to get to that place that you feel like that vixen that's inside in front of your partner.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think we can talk about that in relation to kind of singleness in quarantine, because I think quarantine kind of presents this unique opportunity in that sense to do some of this work, right? Some of this work emotionally and sort of physically as well, in terms of getting in touch with our bodies. And so I would say one of the things that I hear a lot that I do find sometimes a little troubling in this space is, like, nobody can love you until you love yourself. And there's something lovely to that, but I think that there's also a recognition that we live in the world, and so we're a reflection of the experiences that we're having and the feedback that we're getting from other people. And so expecting somebody to kind of be, you know, they say no man is an island, no woman is an island. So expecting somebody to get up to a place of self-love and self-confidence about this physical thing that they walk around in every day without having taken in, you know, any positives from other people or any negatives from people, I think is a bit of a fantasy land. And so I think, not the good kind, we can talk about that later, but this idea that we're going to learn to love ourselves just by virtue of you know, doing the fight every day. We are, and, like, that's incredible work, and that's important, right? Is, you know, affirming yourself. And not everybody, like, you know, you're a big affirmation person, and you know I'm not the type to, like, go and actually say it and do it and, you know, write it down or whatever else, but we still affirm ourselves in our mind, and we work on kind of positive self-talk in that way. But the other thing to kind of remember is that everybody has body hang-ups, and it can shock us the most when we see people who are in what are, I guess, traditionally considered perfect bodies. And by the way, talk to those folks, they don't feel like they have perfect bodies. Yeah. So starting from a place that, like, we're all vulnerable, we're all out here, like, you know, we wear clothes all day, every day. It's the, you know, we have this modesty, and then sex requires you to, like, take that, you know, that armor off in a way. So we're inherently being vulnerable with people. And so I would say, just in the same way that we talked about, surround yourself with kind of positive messages generally about bodies, like the same thing with sex. So first of all, definitely don't be having sex with people who shame you about your body or make you feel bad about your body. Like, that's a red flag. Get out of there early. But also surround yourself with other people who speak, you know, positively as much as they can. Everybody's on a journey, but speak positively about their bodies, and just recognize that your partner might have hangups, you might have hangups, that it's good to talk about them, but it's also not good to focus on them. So focusing on the things you feel good about. So having conversations with partners, like what's one thing you like about yourself? And so the person knows to compliment you on that piece, as opposed to, no matter how much somebody tells you that some part of yourself that you don't like is their favorite part, for some people that doesn't work. For others it does. So I think it's a dialogue, right? And it's communication.
Yeah.
But recognizing that it's an incredibly vulnerable thing. And so to just start from a point of communication, and recognizing that usually by the time people are ready to be at it, the last thing they're thinking about is, you know, bumps or anything else going on in somebody's body, right? Like they're there to have a good time. And recognizing that ultimately should be everybody's goal.
I think I've heard a couple times two people say, like, they know what your size is before you take your clothes off. It's not a surprise at all. And it's funny because this has actually been a conversation in my household the last week, if I'm going to be vulnerable, is because, like, there's still some times that I have days where I have hang-ups about my own body, and my boyfriend, who I live with, he is like, can you just not have that issue? Right? But so he's learned that I need to actually talk through it. And so he's able to say, this is what I need. And I can say, this is what I need to feel like you desire me, or whatever it is. Right? And so then that has created open communication to talk about the things that I want, I need, what matter to me. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you need that. Like those kinds of things. And I think that it helps when you're able to do that and have those conversations, the vulnerability of both people, whether you're in a relationship or you're seeing somebody, but it's the developing of that and that intimacy and that vulnerability and like talking about it, which is something that is so foreign to me. Like it is something that I was in an abusive marriage, right? And so it was sexually abusive, and I was put down about my body all the time. And my current boyfriend partner has never done that. So I think it's also like dealing with things from the past, having those conversations with somebody that you're intimate with, and having those trusting relationships. And it's work to get there, but I can tell you, like, just in one conversations, the difference it's made in our intimacy. And I was petrified to have them. And he's like, why are you scared to have these conversations? Like, this is how we grow, right? So I think the other thing too, tying in kind of like the things that you talk about and what I'm passionate about when it comes to confidence. Like, so I always say I help women build confidence and strength in and out of the gym. That means in the bedroom as well, right? Like confidence translates there. And when you're able to start working on being confident in who you are, not just what you look like, but being confident in your abilities and your talents and your beauty, all those things that make you who you are, it's going to translate into every single area of your life, which includes the bedroom, right? And I think that people are like, oh yeah, confidence this, confidence that. But like, no, seriously, if you are able to get to the place that you learn to love yourself and that you are walking confidently and tall in that, it transcends into every area of your life, including your sex life.
Absolutely. And that people are going to seek you out. Confidence is sexy, right? It's a cliche for a reason. That people are going to seek you out because you're somebody who feels good about yourself and can make them feel good about themselves. And just this idea that we are, we are more than a body, including in sexuality. I mean, even when you talk about communication, and that same kind of dialogue can happen, with a one night stand, like that connection and that ability to dialogue and say, we want to create a safe space here. Like for you, you guys are working, over years to create a safe space in your relationship, but that can be created really quickly if you're willing to kind of like be vulnerable and be open and say, this is my stuff, that's your stuff, and how do we enjoy each other in a way that feels good for both of us. And that's that too, right? That there's balance and feeling confident, not necessarily always about your body in the moment, but feeling confident in who you are and what you're about will also mean you choose sex partners and relationship partners who are going to make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's actually perfect that you said that, because we just got a question. How do you have these conversations with more casual or temporary partners? So I think you addressed that. And I think that when you're in a place that that is who you are, those are the kinds of people you're going to attract and you're going to have in your life, and having those conversations become easier because you're being your authentic self.
and know, and it's okay, like people have hangups. Knowing what your hangups are, knowing what they're about and how to communicate them. You know, I'll give you an example that I was thinking of today is that I was talking to a woman not too long ago who just by nature of the, you know, her body, she would feel often really uncomfortable taking her bra off during sex. And, you know, she was somebody who was dating, you know, men, and this could be true in a queer relationship as well, but where it just felt like the first thing they went for, you know, the first thing for her was that, like, wanted to take her bra off, which, you know, understandably, every teen movie we've ever seen is like the reaching around, right, and getting the bra, you know, getting the bra off. And so she learned it was a hang up for her for a couple of years before she actually thought to say, you know what, please don't take my bra off because that doesn't make me feel sexy. And if you want me to get on top, and if you want me to be here and present and the best possible sex partner I can be to you, I'm going to be that person, you know, with my bra on. Yeah. And so again, to the question about how do you do that with casual partners, like that was something that she learned, like for anybody that she was going to hook up with, that was going to be her caveat. And it wouldn't maybe surprise people to know that, you know, then over time she got over that hang up and is now actually cool to take it off. But it started with being able to speak her truth.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think that transcends again into so many other areas of life where we need to be able to speak our truth, and the inner work that it requires to get to that place is worth it so that we can start living the life that we want. So let's transition, now that we've kind of talked a little bit about that, is how do we get through quarantine as a single?
Yeah. We're not single. I like this. We're kind of like the yin and the yang here. You know, we're telling the story. Well, you know, there's a few different ways. And I did want to start, I feel like this is controversial, and so let's just get it out there because I feel like it's going to come in the comments too, which is I'm not here to talk to people about whether they should break social distancing, what they should do about that. Like, you know, I feel that's outside my scope. You know, I'm just a sex educator. I'm not a public health specialist or anything else. I would just say that love in a time of quarantine, we should do the things we should do in our normal life, which is practice safe sex. And safe sex is up to the individual to do their research, to know what is important to them, to kind of check their values and get their information, right? Get informed. So I would say, you know, check out Ministry of Health, federal government recommendations on what we're supposed to be doing right now. I do have a view of it myself. I mean, as somebody who's asthmatic and high risk, like I'm in my bubble. So y'all can just stay out there. But I know people are feeling different kinds of ways about it. And I just want to say, as kind of a caveat, I'll try not to, in answers to any questions, like place any judgment. If people need to take risks that are appropriate for them, what I will say is, like, please don't go smash and then go see your grandma. Like, I'm just asking people to be safe and protect the vulnerable members of our community, not the Fitness by Sarah Taylor community, but like the global human community. So that's a first off. And I feel like that feels like a proper transition to say, like, the internet is a magical thing. Like, Sarah, when was I mean, I didn't go to class for like the last week before the lockdown either. So it's been an extra while since I've seen you, but like, you're my buddy and I miss you and it sucks, but I'm getting to still connect with you. And yeah, we're not connecting sexually, but we're still connecting. And we've done this a few times. We used to text, now we voice note. Yeah. Like, we're just figuring out other ways to maintain our connections. And I feel like people are doing that really well with their families and their friends and, you know, their old acquaintances. And some others are telling me that they're struggling to do that in relation to dating, but it's really the same thing. It's an opportunity to use the technology that's at our disposal to make connections, and to see where those connections go in terms of how sexual people want to be. I will say that it is about personal levels of comfort. Somebody asked, what about specifically dating while not being able to go on dates? Well, first of all, I think we can go on dates. Yeah. I've seen like a lot of really cute stuff about people going on like dates. Like, you go make your coffee, I'll go make my coffee on a Saturday morning, and then we'll sit and drink it together. And it's like, immediately it's that icebreaker that you get at a coffee shop, right? Oh, you put oat milk in yours? Oh yeah, I'm a vegan. Oh, why'd you become like all those kinds of icebreakers can still happen. If you're out on apps, if you're getting set up, I mean, hey, this is the time to go back and do it old school and say, hey, I know somebody who you might like, and use our networks and use our additional need to connect and create connections to introduce single folks to other single folks and that kind of thing. I think one of the bigger challenges, and I'm sure what people are going to get at, is like, what about actual sex? Yeah. And yeah, that's going to look different. That's going to look like, voice notes. That's going to look like, phone calls. That's going to look like nudes if people are comfortable, video chat, it's gonna look different to every couple, but sex looks different to, every couple as well when they're having it in real life. So
yeah. Let me see if there's any more questions on this before we move on. Okay, this is not related to necessarily single, but everyone wants to, hold on, I think I can actually share this question. Aha. Everyone wants to feel sexy and attractive. How do you navigate body POS versus fat fetish?
Yes, this is the question. And I don't have the answers. I moved through the world both as a sex educator and someone who purports to have a good amount of information about this, and just a human being trying to do my best. And you don't always know. I will say, as a big girl, like, definitely, the fat fetishists are out there, and they're out there in numbers, and they seem to be extra active during the quarantine. Well, everybody's thirsty, let's be honest. So everybody's extra active during the quarantine, but in particular. And so I would say, that's kind of a gut instinct thing, right? Like, that's just following. I think we often feel a way. I don't like that they said that. I don't like how they frame that. I don't like that they asked me to do that thing about my body. In quarantine, it might be about the kinds of photos that they want, versus in real life, it might be about what they want you to do in the bedroom or whatever. But I think it's just a trust your gut kind of feeling, and recognize that if you get it wrong sometimes, to just be gentle and compassionate with yourself, and you're going to feel a little used and abused, and it's I won't cuss on here, but it's a bad feeling, and but just to be gentle with yourself and know it's something that we all experience.
That, I think that listening to your gut is a really good point on so many subjects as well. Like, if something doesn't feel right, there's reason it doesn't feel right. And I think that we need to tune into that a little bit more, rather than just ignoring it. I know for me, like, I'll let this slide. I'll let this slide. And then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then you end up in a situation that is not healthy for you at all. And so I think listening to yourself is something that is really, really important. So I don't see any more questions that have come in on the singles. So let's transition into those who are quarantined with their partner, like me.
So I'm hearing, this is not my specialty, but I'm hearing things. And the two things I'm hearing about is really around, connected to these broader things we're facing during quarantine, right? But is around libidos, and the fact that pre-quarantine, a lot of couples had sort of mismatched libidos, right? Somebody wanted more, not necessarily even just sex, but wanted more intimacy from their partner. People have different ways of expressing love and their love languages. For some people, it's, it is sex. For some people, it's other kinds of physical touch. And for some people, it's not at all, right? Like, they've been doing the dishes and hey, how aren't you noticing? This is me showing my love, but I can't be at it every night. Yeah. And so normally when we were out in the world and we were busy and we were doing other things, couples, and it's still kind of a main conflict in relationships, but couples managed to find kind of an equilibrium. And then quarantine came and it kind of blew all that balance out of the water. And so I think it's about, people are going to, be tired of hearing it, but it's about communication. I'm not a communications professional for nothing, where you hear me talk about communicating all the time. But I do think that it is about saying, this is what I need, this is what I want, this is what I'd like, and this is what I want, and figuring out somewhere in the middle. And then starting with a conversation about what you want, and then having a conversation about what you need. So some partners are going to say, I really, need to spend a couple hours with you in the evening. I know you're busy, I know you're working from home and you're still trying to figure everything out, but I just need that. And maybe their intention in that was that there would be sexual intimacy. And the other partner has to say, I need to not be at it every night. I'm tired, I'm stressed. And just having that honesty and that that dialogue. And the other thing about quarantine is sex can be motivated by attraction, by love, by horniness, by anger sometimes even, but it's very rarely motivated by stress and worry. It can be a great stress reliever. So for those people who are feeling really stressed, try it. Also, masturbation works much the same way. But the idea that we should be appreciating that not feeling desired by our partner, not feeling a sense of mismatched libido has a lot less to do with our relationships and a lot more to do with the fact that, a pandemic is raging around us.
No big deal.
Yeah.
A lot of really good points there. Like the communication piece, like being on this side of the conversation, actually saying to my partner, no, I want this. Not even just like when it comes to sex, but just like in general. Like my partner would have to say to me, why are you working 18 hours a day? Can you just take a break? Right? And you have no time for me when we're like stuck at home, right? So there's that part of the conversation. There's also like, it's also being together 24/7. So my boyfriend is a real estate agent, so sometimes he's out of the house for showings and that kind of thing. So it's like, I enjoy this right now. It's one of those times he's out working and enjoying that time by yourself. But also when that's not an option, where we are in a 1-bedroom condo, it is not big, and his daughter is here on the weekends. And so we've had to learn to have, during the day, he's often in the bedroom doing what he does, and I sit on the couch and work because I don't have an office. And when his daughter is here, I try and make sure that I'm done work so that we can have fun together. So whether that's playing games or whatever, right? Like it just, you have to learn how to adapt to whatever the living situation is. And mine is tiny. So it is having the communication of like, okay, this is what I need. And then it allows to have that time where, okay, so tonight we're going to just like spend time it'll be like a date night inside. Or we've done it where on Saturday we had a double virtual date on Zoom with another couple. And it was great just to like be around other people. And it's being creative in this time of still having a date night, because I think that is really important as a couple, is to still make sure you're not just like surviving and existing together, but still having that time that you would if we were in the real world. So I think that those things are very important, as much as it can be difficult in this, because this is a very weird time. And I think that is the other thing about all the conversations we have right now, is that no one's ever lived through this.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying their best, and we're all kind of sharing different ideas of like, I found this worked, this didn't work, in hopes that like talking to each other makes us realize we're not alone, but also that it might help somebody else to figure out their own situation, and to have more grace for yourself during this period, that especially more than you normally would, because it is such a strange time, and still allowing us to have hope for what the future is, right? So
yeah, absolutely. And I think just kind of going back to my singles out there, is this idea that couples, I think, are obviously fighting more and disagreeing more and everything else, but they are using this as a time to work through and work on their communication. Yeah. And so I think the same can be true. Like, yes, having to date somebody, through an app and through video chat has a lot of detractors, but it also presents a lot of opportunities as well, right? Which is, it allows for you to be safe and in your own space, and having ownership of that, and articulate what you like and what you need, and whether in a relationship, or even if it's somebody that you've signed on to just have a hookup with. Like, you have control, and you get to create the stakes and have those conversations. So I think in talking about this is what is of interest to me, these are my desires, this is what feels good to me, all that kind of stuff too, it does create a great platform for having those conversations, even with new folks. And technology is amazing. Like, I'm not dating in Toronto right now. Like, I have no time for that. I'm dating in Rio and Buenos Aires, because like Tinder Passport, it's a thing, and it's amazing. And so just this idea that like, I would never, right? I mean, it's out there, the app exists, but like pre-quarantine, like, what would be the point? And it's this idea of reminding ourselves that to have fun, to make connections, to do things that make us feel good, as opposed to, kind of moving through out of obligation. I think quarantine has taught us that, right? Yeah. To focus on the things that are important to us and the things that bring us joy, as opposed to the things that, weigh us down.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Somebody said Tinder Passport, so awesome. I didn't know that was a thing, but I mean, I've been in a relationship for almost 4 years, so there's a lot I don't know, I guess.
Yeah. Buenos Aires Andrea is a much saucier gal, so she's having a good time.
That's hilarious. I feel like you should maybe start like one of those anonymous like truth telling experiences of like different things that happen. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like
Yeah.
you submit the different things that are happening. Yeah, I feel like that would be entertaining.
I think some of the connections that people make during quarantine are going to be fascinating. Some of them are going to be lasting. Some of them are, you know, just going to happen for a minute or a couple of hours, but they're going to teach people kind of things about themselves. And I think it's really incredible. And I think it's a time to, you know, make new connections, establish connections that are good for you. Try not to fall back into, you know, bad patterns and toxic things. I think, you know, one of the things that I feel, you know, my singles will want me to talk about is the fact that everybody has exes sliding into their DMs, just like left, right, and center. And one of those reasons is, even not in a malicious way, even a way that feels nice and feels like a connection and, hey, how are you? But it can lead to revisiting negative patterns and things that weren't good for us. And so recognize that, you know, the world post-COVID is going to be a fresh start in a lot of ways. And I think it can be a fresh start in terms of relationships too.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think seeing this time through a positive light is going to be important. I mean, in all areas of life, not just relationships, but instead of, oh man, I can't go out and do this. I mean, it's different. Again, I'm living with my partner, so I'm not, you know what I mean? Like everybody is feeling a ways at some point, but trying to see the light or the positive in this time, like, yeah, like for me, we're together so much that we can get on each other's nerves, but like that's happening less and less because it's actually forcing us to say, this drives me crazy when you do this. Can you stop it? Right? And have those honest conversations as opposed to just like, So.
Yeah, and then you get to the point, like, forgive the metaphor, for your much loving relationship that's about much more than this, but then you get to the point where, like, suddenly the bra can come off, right? Like, suddenly, you know, you're feeling good and you're feeling like you can be out there. Why? Because you communicated what you needed, what your boundaries were, and what was important to you. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I don't see any more questions coming in. This has actually been there's one. What would you advise be for us ladies to give support to our men that are feeling the weight gain insecurities? Oh, and there's a second one right after too. To give support to our men that are feeling the weight gain insecurities. Ooh.
Yeah, two I think really good, two good questions. Then the other one's about the send pics thing, which definitely if you're out there on the apps, you feel me, ladies, and probably gents, but definitely ladies. And so one of the things is, you know, making your partner feel good about being in a bigger body if they happen to be a man is the same way that you would do it if they're, you know, if they're a woman, which is one, you know, be positive and talk about things that you're attracted to, but also not fixate on their body and not make everything about your sexual relationship about their body, and make it about, you know, that connection and that desire to make each other feel good in more ways than one, for sure, but not having that conversation and talking a little bit more about what the hangups are, what works for him, and maybe being, like you were saying, Sarah, like being verbally affirmed is good for you. It helps you to feel better. You know, I often have felt the happiest for partners, you know, yeah, if I look good in a particular little something, you're welcome to say something, but in general, where they don't have much to say, you know, about my body. And so it works differently for different people. So, communication.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think maybe asking like, I think more than anything, like if you know that your partner is struggling with feeling like they gained weight or not being comfortable in their body, just start doing the extra things to make them feel good. So whether it's like, hey, sexy, and it's not like, let's have a conversation about, right? It's really just like making them feel good and like grabbing them in the kitchen, whatever that kind of like might be, just to like help them feel that, rather than, because men are a little bit different. They don't want to have that conversation necessarily. They're not going to say, I'm feeling bad about my body, like we would, or I would. Right? So doing those things might help. I've also found that us doing activities together, so where we live, there's like nobody walking around, so we'll go for a walk together and we both physically feel better. It has no other purpose other than we get time to connect and have a conversation. And by the time we're done our walk, we feel amazing. And so doing those things, and this is what I said last week too, is during this time especially, focus on things that make you feel good. Whatever that is at this point that we are allowed to do those things that make you feel good, because that's going to have a lasting impact on your days and your sleep, I have learned. Let's go to the next question. Convos seem to come up to a halt when you can't meet in person and the other dries up and moves on quickly to send pics.
Yeah, so I feel that. And so I think it's a couple of things. One is I've been talking to one of my friends about this. Hey, Maria. I saw she was in the house. And this idea that we are, we think of online dating as this completely different beast, as opposed to really it's just like a little social meeting place. And if you think about it as an extended version of like a house party where you might go to meet people. And if you were at a house party and somebody, hey, and no shade, some people make that connection across the room and it's just like, let's go do this thing, my place. And that's great. But for most of us, we need to establish that connection. We need to have a vibe and everything else. And so just like somebody who walked up to you at the chip bowl and said, hey, want to go to my place? You'd be like, hell no. I think the same thing has to be about the send nudes. It's okay to ask somebody to be intimate with you online, particularly during quarantine. Like, I think we shouldn't shame people for the fact that that's their desire and that comes from probably a genuine place, but that they need to have manners and be respectful of it in the same way that they would, at that house party. And so keep it moving and let that like, hi, how are you? Where are you from? What do you do? Send nudes. Just like that's somebody you just walk away from and you just keep it moving. And it can be super demoralizing. And I think some of it is stating your boundaries early on and just making clear that that's not something that you're comfortable with, or being honest about when it is you're comfortable doing that, or whatever else. And so I think there's levels. I think audio helps. I think not expecting to jump to like videos and photos really quickly. I think, and again, offering to talk on the phone, offering to talk sexy on the phone, maybe even offering to kind of like have a good time, yourself, myself, separate places. And if people don't respect those boundaries, and if people are going to give you a hard time about that, like, keep it moving.
Yeah. And I think that like tying in as well, like when it comes to any kind of red flag, like that is something that most people, so if that's your thing, cool, though, that like no judgment on it, but most women I know, that's not the kind of connection they want. So it's kind of like, oh, you showed me all your cards right away, that's who you are, like next, even though validating at the same time that is exhausting if that is all that is happening. And if it was me in this situation, I would probably just take a break and focus on the relationships that I currently had in my life, because I wouldn't want to just constantly be putting myself in that place, because I feel like when I was on dating apps, that happened all the time. And now it's just on steroids, right? So I think that protecting your energy is going to be important during this time as well. So if that's all you're getting on dating apps, I would probably take some time away and I would focus on the friendships that you have and the relationships you have. If you're struggling with having connection, like find a group of friends you can have like house party or Zoom calls with, or join some of our classes and have community, meet some other women that you can have conversation with, so that you're not feeling the implications of it as heavily. Also saying that with like such a compassionate heart, like I don't know what being in quarantine single is like. So that's my disclaimer. Next we'll go to Brittany. Oh, Brittany, I miss you. I've been dating someone, ooh la la, sparks, and now as a frontline worker, we aren't seeing each other. Things were okay at first, but now we're losing steam. Help, please, Obi-Wans.
Oh, Brenda, I love you so much. So first of all, I would say, like, just recognize again that my bad house party metaphor and everything else, but even in real life, new relationships, like, they have those ebbs and flows, right? And so definitely quarantine is interfering with that. And by the way, thank you for the incredible work that you're doing, and we are so grateful for our frontline workers. And the idea that it might be a little dip, or sometimes it's a sign that a conversation is needed. Like, sometimes it's just calling it out when an awkward moment's awkward and you go, this is awkward. It sometimes makes it less awkward. And so, hey, maybe I feel like we're losing steam. What do you feel? And maybe that person's going to say, yeah, it's because I'm hella stressed, or yeah, because I'm not really feeling this anymore and I didn't have the courage to say so, or let's do something fun and exciting, right? Like, maybe that's a chance to mix it up, just like you would in a relationship of, like, maybe it's time we do something different, we do something fun together, whether that means like attending, I mean, there's so much virtual stuff to do, right? Like, you can do escape rooms. No, thank you. But you can. you can do virtual escape rooms, you can play games, you can do all kinds of stuff. And so whether that's new kind of fun stuff relationship wise or new stuff sexually, and whatever that is, I don't know if this relationship is sexual yet, so I don't want to make assumptions, but either way, and if you're at it, and if it's like the love life that's getting a little stale, then yeah, you gotta mix it up, and just be compassionate with that person and be compassionate with yourself that, you know, ebbs and flows. And also, like, we mustn't kid ourselves, and you're the couple person, so you can say, you know, true, but like, we kid ourselves that new relationship energy isn't real. Like, we call it the honeymoon period, but like, honeymoon's like a couple of weeks, and yeah, it lasts longer than that. Some of us are lucky it lasts a month, a year, 10 years, but like, inevitably that new relationship energy, you know, it turns to from a boil to a simmer, and you just got to figure out, is this still good for me or not?
I think the other thing too is, like, I notice even in my friendships, like, one of my best friends sent me a message today and was like, how are you? Like, I haven't talked to you. You've been so quiet. And then she's like, oh, I have too. I have been like, I'm working a lot. So like you, Brittany, like being in a position where you're working a lot, I'm not sure what this person, what their situation is, but I don't have the same energy to engage like with people as I normally do, because I'm so drained by the stress of like, is my business going to survive, and being with my partner, and also arranging, like, I don't want to have these kind of calls when he's around, the kind of thing, right? So there's those kinds of things that there's the effects of quarantine is affecting people in so many different ways that it could just be that. And like Andrea said, maybe having a conversation will be helpful to just be like, I feel like this is weird, or is this just because it's quarantine? I still feel this for you, like whatever that might be, and maybe using your voice through this time, as difficult as that might be. Next question, guys, I'm loving all these questions. I think there's a few more. Okay, so we're gonna try. We got 12 minutes left before Instagram kicks us off. So, what would you recommend for helping yourself spice things up when you're not feeling yourself? Hello, sweatpants and quarantine with your partner. I will answer that really quickly. I have turned to lingerie. I have not worn lingerie in probably a year and a half, because we just like kind of got comfortable or whatever. And in the last week, pulled some out, and it's made quite the difference. Also, I've had to focus before that happened on things that made me feel good. So for me, that's do my makeup and my hair. And I'm actually starting my days I might be in sweatpants, usually tights, but I will get a shower and get dressed so that I feel better. And then it kind of like puts me in the mood. And when my day is done at work, I'm like, ooh. And then also scheduling things like date night while you're in quarantine. I think those are a couple of things that I've kind of found that have made an impact, so that I want it. We both feel good, and being in that place, and like having some kind of normalcy. So anything else you would add, Andrea?
Well, I would say that I think one of the things we're really missing out on in quarantine for all of us in a way, because for singles it's I was going to say anticipation, and for singles it's you can keep anticipating, but you're not going to be able to come face to face with that person. And I think for couples you lose a little bit of that anticipation, in the sense that you used to go away and miss each other and look forward to being back together, and be able to send that person a text and say, here's what I'm going to do to you tonight, and all of those type of things. And so I would say, you know, if getting yourself dolled up is the thing for you, then that's amazing. Even if it's staying in your sweats, but kind of knowing like, we got a bit of a plan, not in a kind of let's put it on the calendar and commit, like if we're not feeling it, don't do it, but just this idea that we have something to look forward to, and not hesitating to like, hey, if people are in a long-term relationship and you still want to send like a sexy pic or whatever, you know, even in a bachelor apartment, you could probably, I don't know, get under a blanket and take one. I don't know how that's going to work, but most people, you can at least go into the other room. And so still continuing to like make sure that sense of anticipation and excitement for each other is still there. And I think that's usually what's lacking if it's just like all day, every day on the couch. And so doing something separate, even if it's just on other sides of the room, so that you can kind of come together. And
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, great point. Next question: with exes texting during COVID, how not to engage even though we're lonely and bored? Block. That is my solution, is block. That is always my solution, always was my solution, because in my opinion, my energy I protect, and if I don't want any of that, they're blocked, or then I don't get them. But that's me. That's me. So Andrea, I'll take your professional opinion.
Oh, I don't have a professional about this. We have like, what, 21 views right now? Somebody just signed off. That was probably one of my exes. Bye! So I would say, yeah, sometimes easier said than done. A lot of these folks also, we maybe had friendly relationships and are like, hey, how are you type stuff before quarantine. And now suddenly it's like, hey, girl. And so that can be challenging as well, right? Because it's like, I don't want to block. I don't have any ill will towards this person, but I don't want to engage in that way. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. If you feel ugly about it, if it's somebody who made you feel bad and you don't want to be in contact with, I'm with Sarah, block. But if it is somebody who you otherwise just don't want to be sexy with, then again, communication and just say so. Like, hey, I don't know why you're hitting me up or whatever else, but that I'm not interested in. I don't want to do that, and I don't want to go there.
We're getting close to the end of questions. So somebody's more a comment kind of question. We're in this 2 months so far. Everyone is home bored and doesn't really have anything interesting to say about their lives, which is very true. So it's kind of hard to keep conversations going, coupled with no clear end date in sight, which makes things feel really murky. I would say that applies to everything right now, because like for me personally, like I don't know if my business is going to survive, what this is going to look like when it's over, or relationships. Like there's so many, like, what are our jobs going to look like? When are we going to be able to like go to a grocery store without a mask? Like there's so many things, there's so many unknowns. And I think like there's no words sometimes. That's not helpful. I know. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I think sometimes it's just like people just want to be heard, and so they feel like Sarah feels you guys. Sarah feels you. I think there was 2 questions there. So starting on the last one, which is we don't know when it's going to end. It's true. So going back to the anticipation thing, we just have to find little bitty pockets of joy, things to look forward to.
Agreed.
Like, you know, cheers, shout out for Fitness by Sarah Taylor. But like, if anybody wants to like do something you've never done before, like come take a dance class with us every other Wednesday night. You know, like do something different, break out of your routine. And so same with if you're just starting to see someone or you're just connecting on an app, is like have something to look forward to. If you match with them on Tuesday, don't be like, you want to get on a video call? Be like, hey, want to have a date on Friday night? And so have things built in and baked into your life that you can look forward to with friends, with family, with dates, with relationships or whatever. And then to the question about things to talk about, like, yo, we gotta be more interesting. Like this is again, dating apps are just that house party. Do you want to talk to the person at the chip bowl who's like, these are some no, you're going to go talk to that person and say, if you could be any dinosaur, you know, what would it be? Or that's not very good. Please don't use that, guys. I'm tired. It's getting on 8 o'clock. But, you know, like that ice breaky, that feeling that we all want to have an interesting conversation. There's this Eleanor Roosevelt quote that says, you know, small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, great minds discuss ideas. And so demonstrate that you're a great mind.
Yeah, and I think like some of the like things you can do is like Googling questions that you can engage in conversation. It can also be things like playing games virtually, whatever that looks like, all that kind of stuff as well, and have some fun in it. Even like try and have some fun in it is kind of what it is at this point, because everybody sees fun as different, but like there are so many different virtual games you can play. There's different ways to connect with people, that kind of thing. Doing a dance class is a good idea as well. I think that is it for questions. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining, and thank you guys for sending in so much questions. This was great. I want to leave it off with Andrea telling us where people can find you and the services you offer.
All right. And just on that last point, I would say, like, if it's not fun, like, don't do it. We all got to work from home. We all got to do all stressful things. If it's about sex and relationship and it's not fun for you, like, take a break, stop doing it, do something else, or, you know, masturbate. So that's my takeaway. Also, www.andreatalksaboutsex.com, where you can find out a little bit more about me. It's a work in progress, guys. Be gentle. You can see a fun little cartoon of me developed by an incredible artist who I'll tag on my Instagram. And I offer a range of services, support to individuals, support to couples, help with those dating profiles, whether they're for Tinder, Passport, or any other applications that are out there. And as well, one thing that I'm really passionate about, which we didn't talk a lot about here, is supporting parents to have conversations around consent and sexuality and the kind of birds and the bees conversation with their kids. That's work that I do for individuals and organizations. So yeah, come check me out.
Thank you again so much. We are going to sign off, but before I do, if you guys have any specific ideas you want us to have chats on, if you would like to join me on a chat, it's not always just going to be me. I would love to have a conversation with you guys. So if you have a topic you want to talk about, or you want to be in that conversation, send me a message, info@fitnessbysarahtaylor.com, or on Instagram because it's easiest. But we're hoping to bring you more content like this, and really just want to provide you ways to have conversations with women who look like you, and that we can break some barriers down and you can connect with others. Also, we have virtual classes, which you all know, I think. So we have classes 6 days a week. First class is free, so just head to my Instagram or my Facebook. You can sign up for a free class. It is on Zoom. It's a really great way to be connected, move. Modifications are provided for all exercises, just like our in-person classes. And it's nice just to move our bodies together. Thank you everyone so much for joining us, and thank you Andrea for being my very first special guest. I love you and I'm so grateful for you. And I can't wait to give you a big hug when quarantine's over.
Yay! Love you too. Thank you for having me, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.